Ladies and gentlemen, we will now move to the high-level statements portion where we are going to hear from our distinguished speakers seated on the podium and on the high table. May I now call upon Mr. Patrice Ignatius Gomes, Secretary General of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific States, ACP, to deliver his statement. Mr. Gomes, thank you.
Your Majesty, Queen Noor Al Hussein, Excellency Orhe Chidiek, Special Envoy of Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, distinguished colleagues of the head table, all protocols observed, it is indeed a great pleasure to be here with you in this wonderland of Dubai, and a distinct honor to address you on behalf of the 79 developing countries of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific Group of States, the ACP Group. I would like to thank the authorities of the United Arab Emirates, as well as those of the Zayed International Foundation, for the marvelous ambience in which Expo Dubai 2016 is being held. Also allow me to thank the United Nations, especially the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, and the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation, which works every year to organize an expo on South-South cooperation. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, 2015 was a watershed year that was rich and fruitful for the international community, with successive and coordinated adoption of the Addis Ababa Action Agenda in July on financial issues and the means of implementing the post-2015 development agenda. Then the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in New York in September, which addresses the universal, indivisible, inclusive global development goals, especially at the heart of which is eradication of poverty, inequality, and hunger. And then the Paris Agreement to reduce vulnerability and make a climate safe for all. These ambitious commitments have brought the international community face to face with international development challenges, but they also provide a context and a way forward towards building a more inclusive, more sustainable, and more prosperous future for our world, where no one is left behind. Following on from the commitments made in 2015, the current challenges from 2016 onwards must be implementation. How can we sustainably and inconclusively transform these commitments into concrete results for the benefit of the people by 2030? What resources or means does the international community have to accomplish the 17 Sustainable Development Goals adopted in New York? There is no single approach to achieve these. All relevant, tested, and innovative options must be tried, enhanced, or explored. The Addis Ababa Action Agenda and the Sustainable Development Agenda formally recognize South-South and Triangular Cooperation as a development cooperation modality that can help us to achieve the SDGs. By placing experience and skills to good use in development cooperation, South-South and Triangular Cooperation has emerged as an innovative and effective tool to achieve the SDGs. We strongly join others in calling for South-South and Triangular Cooperation to be promoted and deepened as an innovative, effective, and sustainable development finance modality. Countries in the South have a multitude of development solutions that can be shared and replicated. The Expos and South-South Cooperation for Development, organized each year, demonstrate this. Excuse me. And they must be deepened through mapping our successes and networking across countries and regions for effective knowledge exchange on proven solutions in various development sectors. In conclusion, may I once again convey the ACP Group of States' appreciation of the important facilitation and assistance provided by international organizations, in particular those of the United Nations family, in promoting South-South and Triangle cooperation for effective implementation of the SDGs. I thank you very much.
Very privileged to have as our keynote speaker this morning, Her Majesty Queen Noor Al Hussein of Jordan. Queen Noor of Jordan is an international humanitarian who has been championing many global causes for peace, for understanding, and for sustainable development over many, many years. She is the chair of the King Hussein Foundation, which she founded in 1999 to promote humanitarian work around the world. She was an avid and strong advocate for the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, and she also spoke in the UN Security Council in New York for the elimination of nuclear weapons. Today, Queen Noor of Jordan comes to this podium to share her valuable views with us as the keynote speaker, to give us her wisdom, her views on our theme of enhancing innovation towards achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the podium Her Majesty Queen Noor Al Hussein of Jordan.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good morning. Welcome to the 8th Annual Global South-South Development Expo here in the United Arab Emirates, in the extraordinary emirate, Dubai. It is my privilege to join with all of you this morning. Let me begin by expressing my sincere appreciation to the Zayed International Foundation for the Environment and its chairman, Dr. Mohammed Ahmed bin Fahad, for hosting this expo on behalf of the government of the United Arab Emirates at such a pivotal moment for our global commons. My thanks go as well to Ambassador Richard Nduhura, resident of the United Nations General Assembly High Committee, President on South-South Cooperation, and Jorge Chediak, Envoy of the United Nations Secretary General on South-South Cooperation and Director of the UN Office for South-South Cooperation. My thanks go to them for inviting me to join with you today. The United Arab Emirates was a particularly suitable choice to host this year's expo, enhancing innovation towards achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, as it has distinguished itself as a developing country model for its significant, innovative achievements and sustainability. This year's theme also provides a valuable lens through which to address the scale and ambition of the new inclusive agenda on sustainable development, adopted last September at the United Nations. As we meet here, it is appropriate to emphasize that cooperation among developing countries is nothing new. For centuries, they have been helping their neighbors in need, especially at times of humanitarian crisis. Since the 1990s, the idea of South-South cooperation has expanded rapidly. I remember well chairing in the early 1990s AU's advisory board for the pioneering Center for the Global South in Washington, D.C., where we examined sustainability and human security challenges in the context of South-South and North-South relations, with special emphasis on the environment, economic disparity, human rights, and population, issues which continue to bedevil us today. But as you've heard, today, the presence of South-South cooperation in international discourse is much stronger. And it is the context, of course, in which brings us here today, to address how we all collectively can play a key role in advancing the development of goals promoted by the 2013 Agenda. The global development cooperation landscape is changing rapidly. Developing countries and emerging economies have become key actors, not only in trade and investment, but also in global and regional development. They have amassed rich, groundbreaking, and diversified development practices and are actively supporting each other to find practical and relevant policy solutions. I am particularly looking forward to this gathering's exchange of best practice models, which no doubt will be of incalculable benefit to us all. The new inclusive agenda on sustainable development and the associated sustainable development goals acknowledge the critical role South-South cooperation is playing in development. Official development assistance, ODA, and other official flows need to be smarter to catalyze and leverage all sources of financing needed for the goals, particularly towards more vulnerable, middle-income countries or states in transition that are severely impacted by regional and humanitarian crisis. Developing countries are also gradually demonstrating leadership in building common agendas and taking collective actions in order to address a multitude of challenges that cut across regional and national boundaries. South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation have increased the range of opportunities for development partnership. For many developing countries, they are offering a significant resource channel that is additional to and on different terms from official development assistance funds. Southern partnerships are vital in overcoming current development challenges and reaching internationally agreed development goals, including the 15-year Sustainable Development Goals, to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure prosperity for all. South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation, complementing the traditional North-South model of development assistance, will also be critical in implementing this agenda. These goals will only be achieved through improved global partnership among UN, other multilateral institutions, NGOs, national, public, and private sectors, and civil society. One recent and heartening example of the critical importance of South-South engagement in such triangular partnership building is the Paris Agreement, which enters into force in 4 days. The 200-nation-strong commitment to universal, legally binding caps on emissions to curb the global rise in temperatures is the result of decades of negotiations, which achieved a milestone treaty in no small part due to the engagement of developing nations. And here I must digress to pay tribute to the United Arab Emirates renewable energy company Masdar, pioneering green energy development and technology transfer in our region, aiding critically challenged countries like Jordan in the development of our wind and solar power. But another example, closer to our home here, of multilateral, multi-sectoral partnership building to address a burgeoning global challenge emanating from our region sadly lacks such consensus on root causes and solutions. The current calamitous global displacement crisis, the highest number ever recorded, highlights many of the challenges you will be addressing here: climate change and resource scarcity, poverty and marginalization, and the need for more visionary, inclusive, sustainable, human security-based governance. Our region, MENA, and East Asia alone account for around 60% of the global total of 65.3 million forcibly displaced, the global consequences of which we witness daily. Since 2011, over 15 million Syrians have been displaced inside Syria or into neighboring countries and beyond. Syria's neighbors, Jordan, Lebanon, and Turkey in particular, are reaching a dangerous saturation point. Lebanon and Jordan have the awful distinction of having the largest per capita refugee populations in the world. In Iraq, almost 4 million people have been internally displaced in the past 2 years alone. Almost 250,000 Iraqi refugees are struggling in Turkey, Jordan, and other host or transit countries. And in 2015, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen accounted for over 50% of the world's total conflict displaced. The vast majority of all displaced throughout our region are living well below the poverty line. 1 out of every 122 people on earth is displaced. There, but for the grace of God, go you and I. Please think about that as you explore and craft future policies, because the implications of such massive suffering are dire, not only today for those immediately affected, but for coming generations everywhere, in the loss of educated and productive human potential required to rebuild conflict regions, in dangerous, unprecedented sectarianism, and the potential drivers of extremism and future violence from loss of hope and confidence in a more secure future. In Jordan, in accordance with the principles of South-South and triangular cooperation, we established a response platform for the Syria crisis in 2014 to ensure a broad-spectrum, coherent response to the multifaceted challenges we face through partnerships among the public sector, civil societies, and donor countries. International aid has covered approximately 60% of our needs. While no official figures are available on bilateral support from regional donors, I know well from firsthand experience in our camps that Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia have supported invaluable humanitarian infrastructure development. Over the past 7 decades, we have worked diligently in Jordan to further our vision of an inclusive, equitable society. Thousands of years of civilization have shaped the basic principles which guide our national development: the open flow of people, ideas, trade, and diversity. We've valued moderation, regional cooperation, and cross-cultural interaction. These principles have enabled us to play a supportive and stabilizing role in our turbulent region by promoting the peaceful settlement of disputes through mediation and peace-building and peacekeeping efforts. The key themes of this conference in relation to sustainable development have long guided our national development priorities, particularly in the areas of poverty eradication, food security, public-private partnerships, green technologies, and of course, economic growth. In my work with the critical global challenges of the displaced, the missing, the marginalized, and those suffering crushing poverty, I often see the seeds of perpetual instability and conflict. But where real investment has been made in human security, in human rights, education, economic empowerment, and women's leadership, I have seen young people, and those of all ages, even older than me, flourish as agents of change who work towards and encourage progress, prosperity, and peace. For societies, economies, and nations to thrive, people must, all people must. This has been the foundation of my own human security-focused initiatives in Jordan and beyond. After my marriage to King Hussein in 1978, I looked at innovative ways to complement public and private development efforts in Jordan and to fill gaps in our socioeconomic policies. The resulting best practice programs now administered by the King Hussein Foundation reflected our shared priorities for more equitable, sustainable development, focusing on our most precious resource, our people. As my late husband consistently said, This was not a slogan for King Hussein. This was a very real, everyday preoccupation. These programs introduced an integrated approach to sustainable development to the region, focused on the inextricable linkages among central obstacles to human and sustainable development, including deficits in women's empowerment, knowledge, governance, as well as crises caused by occupation and regional and outside military interventions. Our experience has shown that investing in women's leadership by empowering them with knowledge, training, and economic opportunities promotes local and national stability and prosperity by reducing poverty and hunger, improving health and education. IMF research, in fact, reveals that allowing women to take their proportionate place in a country's labor force can radically increase GDP. And empowered women raise daughters and sons with access to horizons of gender, social, political, and economic possibility. And in our work with host and displaced communities in Jordan, we recognize that this is particularly important for refugee women and their families as well. We all know the old phrase, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime. I'm not much of a fisherman, but in my experience, the saying should be, teach a woman to fish and everybody eats. In short, investment in women is investment in their children and society's future. Far more than airstrikes and boots on the ground, empowered women combat poverty, desperation, and radicalization. The leadership potential of youth is another myopically underutilized resource. Look anywhere today. Old hierarchical and inflexible power centers are breaking down. It is as important for policymakers to reach out across age barriers as it is across gender, race, creed, or country. This is why the King Hussein Foundation has been acting as a disruptive, innovative force for young people in education, economic empowerment, and entrepreneurship, community service, and cross-cultural understanding as well. Our focus through our Jubilee Institute on the academic and leadership potential of meritorious scholarship students from diverse cultural and social economic backgrounds has yielded remarkable rewards through its emphasis on critical thinking, STEM, e-learning, girls' leadership, citizenship, conflict resolution, and community service. Our students and graduates have contributed to innovative companies such as Google, Microsoft, and Yahoo, and winning awards such as Intel's 2013 Award in Applied Mathematics, inspiring NASA to name a main belt asteroid after that student. And girls, despite being told that IT is an exclusive boys' club, have earned 20th globally in an edutainment app challenge competition. These are just a few of the many young men and women who embody our hope and faith for a future of constructive innovation in our region. Over the past 3 decades, our foundation programs have provided training and capacity-building expertise in 22 countries in the broader Arab and Asian regions. Inshallah, constructively contributing to our larger quest for social equity, cohesion, and peace. Today, as a member of the Arab Foundations Forum, chaired this year by the Dubai-based Emirates Foundation, we are joining our 35 years of experience with other Arab philanthropists who, through dialogue, networking, learning, and collaboration within the Arab region and beyond, are leading a youth initiative in partnership with the OECD, addressing particularly goal number 8 of the SDGs, that calls for sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. The spirit of solidarity that inspires South-South and triangular cooperation creates the space for developing countries to share lessons on policy choices, business models, and technological innovations that have been effective in lifting millions out of poverty. In the light of the objectives and targets of the 2013 Agenda for Sustainable Development, it is clear that strengthened efforts and comprehensive human security-based global partnerships are needed to accelerate progress. Only by working together across borders to focus on a broader concept of human security, by sharing the opportunities and benefits of our world with all people, and by enabling them to contribute in return, can we transcend the deprivation and hopelessness that so often lead to conflict and insecurity within countries and among them. As the United Nations Security General Ban Ki-moon said, the biggest threat to terrorists is not the power of missiles, it is the politics of inclusion. Missiles may kill terrorists, but open, fair, and compassionate governing economic and social systems are the most powerful weapons against extremism. Upholding each other and our common humanity is the only path to security and peace everywhere in the world. I've seen this time and again in the last 4 decades in Jordan and across the globe. Let this be the foundation for the work that you do. It is the essence of the teachings of all great faiths, expressed by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in these words: "No one of you is a true believer unless he wants for his brother that which he wants for himself." All development partners are here this week, and together we can achieve much, much more than we can even imagine on our own. I wish you all a very productive and rewarding Expo. Salam alaikum. Peace be with you.